Hey folks, John here, Old Hickory Forge. Welcome back. I haven't posted anything in a little while because it's just been so busy. The 10,000 subscriber giveaway video is going to be coming up pretty soon. I ordered some special handle material for that knife that I'm waiting on to get here. But what's going on today, we're kicking off May's charity build. Organization we're donating to is a nonprofit called More Heart Than Scars. Basically what they do is they work with like adaptive athletes, basically people with like physical and mental disabilities. They help train them, coach them, and help them compete in athletic events like Spartan races, powerlifting meets, things like that. I love fitness and I love blacksmithing, so I'm going to do what I can to help them out. I just feel like it's a good organization for the money to go to. The knife I kind of want to make, I've been making a lot of really pretty stuff lately. I did the ski and do, the dirk, and a couple of daggers before that. I kind of want to make something with more function in mind. So what I got here, big chunk of 5160. Obviously, I'm not going to be using all this. I'm going to cut a piece of it, probably 1.5 inches by about 10 inches off. Now we're just going to make a plain old, no-nonsense cap knife. So if you want to check it out, stick around. So, before I start forging in the shape of the blade, I'm just going to go at it with a straight peen and try to pull some length out of it to get a better idea how much material I'm working with. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick, which is way, way too much. So, just going to work it down to a little more manageable thickness. So, nothing fancy, just taking my time, switching sides as I go. You could just as easily use the horn of the anvil with a regular hammer. I just kind of wanted to use the straight peen. So, I got my billet down to the thickness I'm looking for. What I got here is a tool called a bottom fuller. This is going to be a full tang knife, so we're going to forge in the shape of the handle. I'm just going to eyeball about how much I think I need. Right about there should do it. And that gives us that defined transition so we know to forge all this out into the handle. So, I've got a pretty nice preform going, but I would like the blade to be wider, especially down here where the ricasso is going to be. So now I'm just going to go at it with a cross peen. Just try to bring it out some. So, something I didn't think about, I'm actually not going to be forging the bevels on this knife. I'll explain why whenever we go to hit the grinder. But now what I've got to do, I just instinctively forged in the reverse point, so now I just got to gently bring it back to where I actually want it to be on the finished knife. But that's about it. So, here we are off the anvil. It's looking pretty good. It's pretty close to the shape I wanted already. I'm just going to bring the area that's going to be the handle up a little bit, give it a little more room. True up the profile. Most of the work is going to be in grinding this whole thing good and flat. Haven't decided if I'm going to kind of leave a forged texture up here on the flats or actually grind them down to true flats yet. So I'm just going to get grinding on it and see where it goes. So, got my billet ground down nice and flat, got it down to a usable thickness. I figured I'd go ahead and tell you why it is I didn't forge the bevels. I want to make a Kydex sheath for this knife, which is basically a plastic that the knife is going to kind of snap into, and having a defined ricasso that is roughly the same width as your cutting edge will help it grab the sheath a little bit better. So, if had I forged the bevels, it would have been a lot wider, and I'd have had to grind all that material back, and it just would have been a waste of time. But I'm thinking I'm going to do a saber grind, so I'm just going to bring it up to about right there, leaving the flats untouched. I do think I'm going to go back to the forge and texture the ricasso and the flats of the blade, because there's a hammer mark right there that I can't really get out, and it either has to all be textured or all be flat. There's no in between, or otherwise it'll just look stupid. So I'm going to go ahead and get the bevels roughed in, texture the flats, grind the tang back flat, drill my holes, and go from there. So, nothing to it really. Just try to keep it as flat as you can and go through with some, kind of gentle blows. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my mark and normalize this thing 3 times, just so I don't have to worry about it later. So, after texturing, I did my best to straighten the knife, and then I checked it with a framing square, and it was reasonably close to true, so I went ahead and drilled the holes for my Loveless bolts, as well as a few bigger holes just to reduce the weight. Put a lanyard hole down here. Got my sharpening notch filed in. That's just to make sharpening the full length of the edge easier on a fixed blade with a ricasso like this. Some people say it creates a weak point right there, but it really doesn't. If your knife breaks at the sharpening notch, it was a piece of crap anyway. But seeing as how everything's looking good, I'm going to go ahead and quench this guy. The oil we go. Don't you crack on me. So, quench seems to have gone really good. It didn't warp. I didn't feel any cracks or anything like that. It hardened really, really well. I recently got this set of Rockwell testing files I've been messing around with. This one's 65 HRC, and you can hear that, it skates. So this thing's above 65 Rockwell hardnesses, which is way, way too hard for like a, you know, a hard use camp knife or something like that. So it's just kind of cool to have those around so I can kind of check it as I temper it down until I get it where I want it. I'm aiming for like in between, you know, somewhere between 56 and 59. I'd like the 55 file to skate in the 60 to bite a little bit. You know, that should make it good and tough, but still hold an edge reasonably well. But let's temper this thing. Temper the blade, I'm going to do what's called the differential torch temper, also called a soft back draw. Basically, I'm going to take the torch and I'm going to heat the spine and the handle and bring them all the way back to a blue and try to get a nice light straw or so on the edge. That'll make the back of the knife nice and springy, shock absorbent, so if you're chopping or something, it's a lot less likely to break. What I got here, just a spray bottle of water to keep from over softening the edge as you're putting the heat into the spine. Nothing to it really. So, I've tempered the edge to about a dark straw color. Spine's nice and blue, but the 60 file is still skating on the edge, so it's a little bit harder than I want it. So I'm going to bring it back just a little tiny bit more to about a dark brown or so, and we should be good to go. So, got the temper about where I want it. What's got to happen now, we got to keep thinning down this cutting edge to its finished thickness without damaging the ricasso or the flats. So it's a bit tricky when you have defined stopping points here and here, but with practice it's not that difficult. Then we'll just make sure the handle's nice and flat, and we'll keep moving. So, got the blade finish ground. It's looking pretty good. To start working on the handle, what I've got here, some black micarta. It's not quite as thick as I would like, so I got some red G10 spacer material. I'm going to rough both these surfaces up and epoxy these together so I can work with them as one piece of material. And that's what we'll make our scales out of. So this is just an idea I had for drilling the holes in my handle material. What I did was I super glued my block to the side of the tang. I've already done this one. That way I can drill all my holes without it moving in one go and then just smack it on the table to get it loose. And then in theory, I should be able to just clean this glue off with some acetone so it's good and flat and be good to go for the glue up. Never tried it before, I want to see how it works out. So if you've never used Loveless bolts before, basically the way they work is you have two little brass bolsters and you got a stainless steel screw. You know, they come where you can get a brass screw and stainless bolsters and this, that, and the other, but this is just what I prefer. You recess the bolsters into the handle material by drilling part way through it. And you put your bolts in, and that's really all there is to it. It's one of the strongest ways to fasten handle material to a knife. So I've gone ahead and got my scales bolted together. I'm going to go ahead and get the front contoured up so it sits on the knife where I like it. We'll get them epoxied, bolted on, and go from there. And you basically just take and, you know, bolt the scales to the knife. That'll do it. So So what I got here, very rudimentary Kydex sheath making setup. I got my sheet of Kydex right here. Got my, you know, slapped together scrap styrofoam and wood press, some clamps. Basically all you do is you heat the Kydex up until it gets soft, and you press it around the knife, and it makes a sheath that the knife snaps into. So I'm just going to sit here and blast this thing with a heat gun for a few minutes until it gets soft. You can do this in the oven, but I mean, I don't have an oven down here. I didn't want to do it in the house and then have to run it down here and mess around with all that. So that's what's going on now. I forgot to mention, normally with Kydex you have a smooth side and a textured side. You want the smooth side to be the inside of the sheath. So I've only actually made a few Kydex sheaths in my life. You know, don't take this as like a how-to. This is just kind of how I'm doing it. But as you put heat into it, it softens up. And about the time it behaves kind of like a wet noodle is about when it's ready to be pressed. So get it in the press. Put our knife in there. Fold it around it. So, and after rustling the clamps looking like an idiot for a few minutes, just let it sit in there until the plastic cools off. What the styrofoam does is it presses it around the knife and forms it to it. So hopefully we got a good sheath in there. Hey, that actually worked pretty good. Alright, I've gone through and marked out where I want to cut the sheath out, making sure to leave enough room for these eyelets that are going to go there, and that's what will actually fasten the sheath together. You can cut this stuff on a wood cutting bandsaw pretty easy, or you know, anything of the sort. I'm probably just going to take it to the grinder with a 40 grit and hog all this crap off. But that's what's happening now. Kydex grinds really easy. That only took about 5 minutes. So, to put the rivets in the sheath is a pretty simple process. I got 1/4 inch eyelet rivets here. Drill your 1/4 inch hole. Basically, you just put it in there. What I got here is an arbor press that I modified so I can change the dies out. And I got a rounded die in here that just kind of crimps. Kind of flares the die out about like that. And then I like to go at it with a ball peen hammer and just gently mushroom all that over. That's all there really is to it. This is not the correct way to do this. They make proper tooling for all of this, so I'm kind of just using what I have. But that's about it. So here's the sheath all done. Got the belt loops put on there with some Chicago screws. Also took a heat gun and flared out the where the handle snaps in right here just to make it easier to get in and out. But sheath holds the knife really good. You know, it's not coming out of there unless you want it to. Got a nice thick chunk of maple here. So, here we are after a couple of dozen whacks at that chunk of 2-inch maple. No damage on the edge or anything. Still good and sharp. I also took care to make the spine of the knife, the corner is pretty sharp so you can strike a fire steel with it if you need to. So there we have it. One camp knife, 8.5 inch blade, about 3/16 of the spine. Saber grind, full tang obviously. Black micarta with red G10 handles, loveless bolts, and a Kydex sheath. I decided to go with the horizontal belt loops for the sheath because that automatically makes it ambidextrous if you're right or left-handed. Also, if you've ever worn a big knife on your hip, it flops around a lot unless you put a really rigid belt loop on it, and then it's just stiff and annoying. Or you can strap it to your leg and put like a drop leg swivel type deal on it, but then you can't use the cargo pocket on the side of your leg. And if you got to take your pants off to take a crap or something, it's a huge pain. So I just, you know, I think this is a pretty good option. But so you can wear it on your back, face it to the right or left, on your hip, cross draw if you like. But there it is. So there's May's charity build. like I said at the start of the video, this knife is going to go up for sale on Etsy. 75% of the money is going to be donated to More Heart Than Scars, which is a non-profit organization that helps with athletic development for adaptive athletes, which I think is pretty cool, and I think it's a good place for the money to go. Let's see, what else? Oh, June, quarterly Patreon giveaways coming up next month, so patrons of the channel, be on the lookout for that. 10,000 subscriber giveaway video is going to be coming up pretty soon. Still waiting on that handle material I ordered. Other than that, that's all I got for you. If you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Always more cool stuff coming. Links to the Etsy and all the social media if you want to follow me or purchase some of my work. And y'all take care.